Hello, I'm Dalek44. You probably knew that. If you didn't, I'm here as a complete stranger to welcome you to my Q&A. Yep, I'm afraid you heard me right the first time. Anyway, here I am to answer all of your questions. And before I go on to this, I just want to thank you all for whoever sent me these questions in the last few weeks. It's been a great turnout, and I know I've been a bit busy with my outside life, and I've been fighting a bit of a cold, really. But anyway, now it's time for me to answer your questions. So here we go. What took you so long to make this video anyway? Didn't you hear me the first time? I have a life outside YouTube, you know. Oh, I'm sorry. I fell asleep after you welcomed us to your Q&A. You're fired next week. Why do you have a candlestick in your mouth to give the illusion it's a cigarette? Because I don't smoke. And I was feeling a little bit peckish when I went in the dressing room. Combined Harvester 1, aka Top Pictures, asks, what do you enjoy most about making videos and why? The thing I enjoy most about making the videos is trying out new comedy challenges for each one. Because I really love comedy, and with every joke I do in previous videos I just want to move on to the next joke. Emily and Henry, Kane Fan 701, and the James Cock asks, what inspired you to make your own Thomas series? Well, the story goes back when I was still researching the internet, and I stumbled on by complete accident the Sodo Island fan site. I had a look at it and saw all the information about the Thomas shows that were made, and I also stumbled onto the redub productions, which were cleverly done, and I also looked on the parody series. And the first parody series I ever watched was something called The Yard, which was Thomas but more intended for adults, which is pretty different from normal things, isn't it? But my main inspiration was Thomas the Batchman Engine. My god, that series kicked ass. Hearing music that Captain Punjab made himself was brilliant, but the best thing about it was the facial expressions for each engine and the funny stories. That was one of the main sparks for me to create Thomas. But I also got inspiration from other people, like David Mitten and Britt Allcroft for their Thomas series, especially with Series 5. And I got inspiration from YouTubers, like Combined Harvester 1, Dissolve Blossom, Knuckles, and Train Lover 476. Combined Harvester 1 with Thomas the Model series was the first ever YouTube Thomas series I ever watched. The stories were really funny to watch, and back when he sounded younger, it was like I was watching the work of a child genius. And I also find it funny how he introduced Tiger Moth of all characters as a villain. That was the main inspiration to make my Tiger Moth a villain, and the series updated throughout the years, with new facial drawings, a full-length feature film, and yours truly helping out. Miss Olive and Blossom with TNF was always funny to watch. He had funny stories that he made up himself, non-face havers as characters, which is why I've got Mallard in my series, and his voices were brilliant. Even though the audio of the first 3 episodes weren't very good, it was still fun to watch at the time. Miss Olive and Blossom just kicks ass with his comedy. Knuckles with the Railways of Sodor was sort of similar to Captain Punjab series, but he used Hornby instead of Batchman. Plus, he did a few great smoke effects in his episodes, which are brilliant. And Train Lover 476 with Tommy Thomas and friends was just hilarious. Too hilarious to stop watching. Whenever I watch an episode, a special, or his shorts, I just die from laughing. Not literally. I think my favourite video would have to be the Game Show Carnival Rooftop Madness, because it's funny to see all the engines and Mikey, the big German joke, go together on a rooftop. And it's also funny how Mikey goes into insanity at the end because he has to put up with Henry. Those guys just kick total ass. And all those were the main sparks for creating my own series. Rosa the Cutie 1995 asks, What's your favorite episode from your series? Well, I think I do very well with every new episode I make. Like better effects, more gags. I think I did extremely well with the Thomas and Rosie summer special from this year, because at that point I pushed the boundaries of the effects I normally do on paint. But my favourite episode at the moment would have to be episode 16, Quarantine. For it was based on one of my favourite Tugs episodes, and it was one of the first episodes that was centred around Toby. Boris Fangirl asks, have you ever thought of an episode of Second Co where they meet a female singer? Well, I am planning to introduce a love interest for Cyber, but I'm not sure what type of woman she should be, so it could happen, yeah. JRiddle41 asks, out of all your parodies and episodes, which ones are your favourites? Well, I've mentioned my favourite TTTE episode, but I think I can mention my favourite Second Co and specials at the moment. My favourite Second Co episode is Caravan, because that's based on one of my favourite Magic Roundabout stories, which has the same name. And I used to tell that story to myself all the time when I was a kid. And my favourite special would have to be Thomas Around the World in 80 Days. Because that was the first time I actually put a really sad moment in with comedy. But with that, I kinda had to, really. So yeah, those are my favourites at the moment. Mr. Professor 14 asks, what inspired you to make short comedy videos? That's a very good question. I'm the kind of person who feels like comedy is an important part of life, and not everything in life should be taken seriously, which is why I don't ever watch the news. So much depression on the news these days. Most of my comedy routines are based on famous comedians such as Rowan Atkinson, David Jason, John Cleese, Seth MacFarlane, Eric Thompson, Tony Robinson, Dawn French, Mel Blanc, Rick Mayer, David Walliams and Matt Lucas, Hugh Laurie, Catherine Tate, and the two Ronnies. And plus, making comedy videos isn't just fun, it's also a challenge to keep people interested, and that ain't always easy. Okay, now let's see, what's the next question? Persian Duck Fan 94 asks, what is your favourite Homestar Runner tune or short? My favourite tune from Homestar Runner would have to be We Clung Back. I found it entertaining to hear how the characters from the Homestar Runner universe spend their summer holidays. The most funny thing is how Strongbad spends his. And my favourite short is the email short Garage Sale. I found it funny at the end when we discovered that Strongbad actually stole Marzipan's old answering machine. And my favourite video game from the Homestar universe is Strongbad's cool game for attractive people, Dangerous 3, The Criminal Projected. Boris Fangirl also asks, have you ever thought of making a skunk episode? If Nemesis Hero 123 wants to make another Dalek Second Frank crossover, maybe. Nemesis Hero 123 asks, have you ever thought of doing a Doctor Who action figure video? Well, I have included a few of my Doctor Who action figures as cameos in some videos. Like in the recent episode of TTTE, I had the silence in the background. So I might end up doing a full Doctor Who action figure video one day. So maybe yeah. Duke vs Smudger 205 asks, will Lady be in your series? If I can think of a story good enough for her, maybe. Starbug Productions asks, what made you name your channel Dalek44? Well, when I first made the channel, I was originally going to call myself Dalek Sec and something. But when I tried to type it in, the names were already taken. So I just chose the number 44 out of random. Coffee Shop 246 asks, how long does it generally take to make an episode? Well, depending on how long the episode is going to be, and how soon I receive lines, it takes about 1 to 2 months. Because I need to do all the shots, the voice recordings, though I'm obviously writing the stories before then. So it's writing the stories, voice recordings, filming the scenes, and the hardest part, the editing process. So those things are pretty hard. IKJam2 asks, how do you make the effects on your engine's faces? I use one of the simplest of simple programs, Microsoft Paint. Very simple, isn't it? Duke vs Smudger 205 also asks, Are the narrow gauge engines ever going to be in your series? Maybe. Not 100% sure. Percy2156 asks, what editing programs do you use and how do you use them? Oh, as I explained in a previous question, the program I use for the visual effects like facial expressions and all that is Microsoft Paint. And for the recordings, I just use a camera which takes both photos and films. And for the editing process, I use Windows Movie Maker, which is a bit of a stress boat, but hey, it works. The Train Dude 48 asks, which Sodor engines do you like to voice act and why? Well, I particularly like voicing James. He was always one of my favourite engines in the series. And I also like voicing Diesel 10, because he's one of my favourite Diesels. He's like the most evil Diesel around. And besides, it's more fun to play villains sometimes, isn't it? Thomas Transformer asks, what do you think of Lady Gaga? No comment. Pooley Joe Maz asks, how many Thomas model trains do you have? I have almost every Ertl model ever made, but I don't buy them anymore, for obvious reasons. I have loads of wooden railway engines, and I've got quite a few Hornby trains in my parents' bedroom. So, long story short, shitloads. KaneFan701 also asks, who is your favourite Thomas character? Well, my favourite steam engine is James, because I find him a bit funny at times. Mainly in the episode Buzz Buzz, when he looks like Rudolph. Yeah. And my favourite Diesel would have to be Diesel 10. Because he's like the evilest of all Diesels on Sodor. He's like the mastermind of all evil on the railway. Rosie the Cutie 1995 also asks, who is your least favourite character in the Thomas history? Well, I'm not actually 100% sure yet. I at one point thought that it might have been Spencer, because he's sort of a pompous ass in the show. But the reason I'm not 100% sure is because he's an A4 engine, and that's my favourite type of engine. But I think my least favourite might really be Jeremy the Plane, because he looks too modern for Thomas, really. Plunderbird asks, do you prefer the Doctor wearing a fez or a Stetson? Definitely a fez. Fezzes are cool. Emily and Henry also asks, from Thomas and Friends from seasons 1 to 15, which series is your favourite? Well, I have 3 favourite series of Thomas the Tank Engine. The first 2 is series 1 and 2. For I love the stories they chose from Wilbert Awdry and Christopher Awdry. I especially love the Troublesome Engines saga and the Flying Kipper episode. And for both series I really love Ringo Starr's narration. There's no doubt that he's the best narrator. And in series 2 I love the Duck and the Diesel saga and Ghost Train. I mean, that was the first ever scary ghost episode ever made in the show. And the background music was cool to listen to as well. And my third favourite series is series 5, because it's the darkest series I've ever seen. And before you ask, not CGI dark. I mean dark storylines. A few of the episodes were happy, but the rest of the stories were quite threatening since the engines had to deal with supernatural beings and natural disasters, like a boulder, ghosts, tide-damaged tracks, an avalanche, fallen trees, fires, rock slides, floods, and all that stuff. Plus most of the episodes are either set or have most scenes during nightfall, and they detour away from the Railway series and are based on original ideas. Except for some episodes which are based on real-life experiences. So Series 5 kicks ass. IG77612 asks, what other TV shows do you like besides Thomas and Doctor Who? In no particular order. Family Guy, Robot Chicken, The Magic Roundabout, The Simpsons, Little Britain USA, The Catherine Tate Show, Hi Hi Puffy Army Yumi, Ed, Ed and Eddie, The Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, Wacky Races, The Vicar of Dibley, Mr. Bean, The Young Ones, Dastardly and Muttley and Their Flying Machines, Seth MacFarlane's Cavalcade of Cartoon Comedy, Sonic Underground, Sonic Sat AM, Pingu, Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, The Trapdoor, Faulty Towers, Blackadder, Only Fools and Horses, The Thin Blue Line, Tugs, Disney's House of Mouse, the 1983 version of Mr. Men and Little Miss, The Mr. Men Show, Torchwood, Homestar Runner, yes it counts, Wallace and Gromit, and World's Craziest Pool. Crawley Joe Maz also asks, how old were you when you first started liking Thomas, Tugs and The Simpsons? Well, I liked Thomas and Tugs since I was in nursery, and I loved The Simpsons when I was in primary school, even though I was a little bit too young to be watching it, but hey, I love watching it anyway. J Riddler41 also asks, who would win in a cat fight over Thomas, Rosie or Emily? That's a very good question. A lot of people have been thinking that Emily would win in the fight, and a lot of people said that Rosie would, but I assure you that is complete and utter bullshit. For no one would actually win the fight, it would be a draw. You see, since Thomas already knows that Rosie loves him already, Emily and Rosie would forget about being angry at each other, give each other a great big hug, they'd both go out for ice cream with Thomas, and they'd be friends again. Now that is creative, isn't it? Bet you didn't expect that. Thomas Transformer also asks, do you like Winnie the Pooh? I used to watch it when I was young, but I haven't seen the latest film yet. Mr. Professor 14 also asks, how long have you liked Homely Fools and Horses? For years. David Jason is just brilliant as Del Boy. He was one of the main inspirations for creating Dalek44 Q&A. Plus John Sullivan is one of the best writers. And like a lot of people, I was devastated when I heard that he had passed away. It really broke my heart to see one of the best British comedy writers pass away. There's no doubt about it, John Sullivan's comedies were some of the best. He's just the king of comedy. No, wait. Better. The god of British comedy. Crane Productions 27 asks, which Doctor got you watching Doctor Who? David Tennant. Crawley Joe Maz also asks, who is your favourite Tugs character? I would have to say my favourite is Zolan. Besides the fact that I have a thing for liking villains, I think Zolan's one of the funniest villains in the show. I especially like the way he says, "Dammy." That's just really funny. IG77612 also asks, who are your top 5 Doctor Who characters? My favourite characters who aren't the villains would have to be Captain Jack Harkness, Rose Tyler, Donna Noble, Wilfred, and of course, the Doctor. J Riddle41 also asks, how long have you been a Doctor Who fan? When the first new series came out with Chris Eccleston, I wasn't actually into it as I am now. The only reason I actually watched some episodes of Series 1 was because of the Daleks. Then when David Tennant came in for the Christmas Invasion, I actually got more into the show because I found David Tennant funny. So I guess you could say I've been liking it since 2005. And that's a long time, isn't it? The Train Dude 48 also asks, if you had a choice to remove any character from Thomas and Friends, who would it be and why? Oh, that's a really tough question. I'd have to say that I would want to remove Dennis, because he's just a lazy little shit. Percy2156 also asks, do you watch NFL football and what is your favourite team? I do not watch football. I'm not a sporty guy. Adam and Thomas 1997 asks, do you like Sooty? Yep. The James Clock also asks, what do you think is the worst Thomas and Friends special? Definitely Call-In or Engines. When I first heard that Diesel 10 was going to return, I thought that it was going to be a good special. But then to my surprise, it wasn't. For the main reason, which is Diesel 10 becoming a softie. I mean, let's just take a look at it logically a minute. Like, erase Diesel 10 from your mind, you've never heard of it. Which one of these would you say is the real Diesel 10? Is this Diesel 10? No, that's just a bad Diesel who turned into a softie. That's Diesel fucking 10. Evil face, sinister claw, evil plans, evil as hell. There's really no competition. Duck the GWR Engine Fan 9 asks, have you ever been to Disneyland in California or Walt Disney World in Florida? Disney World in Florida. When I was really young. I think I might have been about 8 the first time I went. And then the second time was for my 10th birthday. And I fucking loved it. James Goffreyson asks, do you like anything other than Thomas? Now, I've already mentioned the TV shows I like, but I can tell you the video games I like. I like Super Mario 64, for it was the first ever game I got for the N64, and it was the first time you get to have Mario running anywhere, rather than just left or right. I love Star Fox 64, aka Light-Up Wars, because it's almost Star Wars related, besides the fact that it has no Jedi Knights or Sith Lords. I love the Mario Party series, for the fun as hell minigames, and my all-time favourite, Super Smash Bros. I don't need to explain anything, it's just fucking awesome. I mean, whenever I play one of these games, it's always fun to play one of the Nintendo stars and fight against the other Nintendo stars. And Smash Bros. Brawl is my all-time favourite because of introducing Sonic the Hedgehog as a secret character. So every time I play Smash Bros. Brawl, I always play as Sonic. Darker Demons asks, why is Slovene so stupid? Now that's a good question, my friend. Slovene was actually born with a brain that's so minute that if a hungry cannibal cracked his head open, it wouldn't be enough inside to cover a small water biscuit. Percy and Duck Fan 94 also asks, who or what is your favourite monster or enemy from Doctor Who? Well, I have a number of favourite enemies, so it might go on for a bit, but here we go. The Master, the Slovene, the Sontarans, the Silence, Madame Kavarian, the Jadoon. They sort of count as a villain. The Cybermen, the Daleks, and Davros. Duck vs Smudger 205 also asks, what do you like to do in your spare time? When I'm not making videos for YouTube, I like to paint, play video games, watch TV, cook, mostly cake. Cake. IG77612 also asks, what is your favourite Doctor Who episode? Mostly my favourites are episodes with the Daleks or the Cybermen. But at the moment, my new favourite is A Good Man Goes to War. It was just awesome seeing Cybermen, Sontarans and Silurians in the same episode as each other, which was really first influenced by the Pandorica Opens. It's just a brilliant episode. The Train Dude 48 also asks, from all of the Doctors, which is your favourite and why? David Tennant's my favourite. I don't need to explain anything, he's just fucking hilarious. He always saves the world, but adds a bit of humour to it as well. The James Clock also asks, would you ever consider buying a Hornby or Batchman Thomas set? If so, then which one? Well, I already own Hornby, but I don't use it really because, well, I used to have a set for Hornby, but we had to remove it after we rearranged my bedroom. But if I had to choose a Batchman Thomas set, I would just go for any of the engines of Thomas that have already been sold as Batchman. Silent Comedian 1 asks, would you one day like to work in the making of the Doctor Who series? Yes I would. But I'm not 100% sure whether I want to be the Doctor or an alien or evil scientist. But either way, I'd love to work with Doctor Who. Darker Demons also asks, which Daleks do you think are the best? Regular Daleks? Dalek Sex brings to mind, smiley face with laughter, or Daleks from the Cult of Scarlet. Note, I only know this stuff just from the Sec email vid, the Cult of Scarlet. I'm just slowly, bit by bit, getting the knowledge of Doctor Who. So I hope it's not a stupid question. Hee hee. Laughter. It most certainly is not a stupid question, my friend. The best Daleks, I reckon, are the Bronze Daleks, or as I like to call them, the Time War Daleks. For they look more like they could actually do some damage. The way they're built makes it actually look like they can really take over the universe. It's not really much competition compared to the new Paradigm Daleks we got now. I will admit the new Daleks do look cool in their new size and colours, but I make them look as mechanical as the Time War Daleks are. We get less hate comments about them then. And that's just about every single question I have answered. And now I'm going to send you off with some music.